kind of on my own terms, to get God to do what I want him to do, then in other words, to appease him, I believe in him so that he'll do what I like, then I don't believe in God. And so, in that sense, it's really a question of, do I believe in the right God or not? If I do, and if I'm willing to receive God on his own terms, I don't think that I need to be too terribly concerned about why am I believing in the true God as he's revealed in the Bible. If I'm believing in that God, that will take care of all my motives.
We all learned in high school chemistry, well, maybe not all of us, but we learned in high school chemistry that dihydrogen oxide is water, right? H2O, or is it hydrogen dioxide? Right? H2O.
Jordan, is that true?
That water is made of H2O.
Is that true?
Dihydrogen monoxide.
Monoxide, thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Apparently not even I learned it.
Next question.
So, hydrogen and oxygen, how many of you did it change the way you drink water? When you found out it was made of hydrogen and oxygen, dihydrogen monoxide. Didn't make a difference. You can believe water is made up of those chemicals and it changed nothing about you. You can believe God in such a way that it changes nothing about you. It is going to be the easiest thing in the world for God to judge people on that day. He's going to open his book. He's not even going to flip to the front page. He's going to open to the cover, and it's going to say, Sam Musgrave believed in God, but lived as if it didn't matter. And he's going to say, away from me. I never knew you. Why we believe God is everything. Is everything. And just echoing what Matt said just now. Absolutely.
Matt, a question came in during your sermon last night. It says, reading Exodus 33:20, how can we understand why everyone who saw Jesus didn't die, since Jesus was God?
When Jesus became man, when the Son of God became Jesus, we could say. That's when he took on the name. He wasn't named Jesus when he was the pre-incarnate Son of God. When he became man, Philippians says, emptied himself, set aside his glory. Big discussion about what exactly that means. Part of what it means is that he set aside what we could call the obviousness of who he was. Before he became a man, the Son of God, if you look at him, Philippians 2 says he existed in the form of God. So, we know what something is by its form. We know what it is. If an animal walked in here with a bill, an orange bill, and orange webbed feet and white feathers, we would know by its form that it's a duck. You know, that's what it is. And so when people looked at the pre-incarnate Son of God, before he became man, they knew by his form, if you could put it in those terms, which Philippians does, that he was God. It was obvious. It was clear. He laid aside the clear manifestation of his godhood when he became a man. It was not as obvious. When people looked at Jesus Christ, the man, it was not obvious to them just by his physical form who he was. And so in that sense, his deity was veiled. Now it becomes a little bit more challenging when there is an unveiling, a temporary unveiling. For instance, at the Transfiguration, Moses gets to see it, Elijah gets to see it, Peter and James and John are totally blown away. They don't even know what to say. And there is a clearer manifestation at that point of who Jesus Christ is. It is to those that God has chosen to redeem. How exactly that works, how exactly God preserved them through that, I'll pass that on to Paul.
I'm enjoying this.
You sound like you're on a date. Oh, were you talking?
The question.
I was explaining some things.
I was thinking about Transfiguration. I love that passage. So Pastor Brett at Sovereign Hope preached a really good sermon on that. But yeah, so the question at the end. What was the question at the end?
The question at the end, leaving open-ended, how was it possible when the divine glory of Christ is manifested in the Transfiguration, how are Moses and Elijah and Peter and James and John able to survive that experience?
And microphone down. All right. No, non-members. All right. Paul, you've been quiet for 3 minutes. Wait, wow. All right, let's put you on the spot then. And you were preaching last night, question came in. How does God remain good or kind if he's created hell for eternal suffering of sinners? I know a lot of people were processing that as you were speaking on God's goodness and God's severity. So how does God remain good or kind if he has created a place of suffering such as hell?
It almost seems self-evident that if we are sticking with the fact that God has been eternally good and severe in character, and then that plays out as we read in Scripture in Romans 11:22, we see it today. It would only seemingly play out for all eternity that God is continually good, and that his goodness will be worshipped by the saints around the throne for all eternity, and his severity will be eternally seen with the unbeliever who is forever under his wrath, knowing that severity in such unleashed, in such an unleashed way. So I think it's the only way it plays out, that God's goodness and severity isn't just has been seen, is seen now, but will be forever seen. Am I misunderstanding something in the question?
No,
That,
that's good.
I'll go to the extent of the one in hell having heaped wrath upon himself. I believe it's Romans 2:5, I forget. Having stored wrath up for himself will not be wondering hell. Now, why am I here? Now, why? I thought I was pretty good on earth. I know I was a lot better than my neighbor was. But why is God doing this to me? I don't think that will be the case, because they have stored up such wrath for them. They will know full well that they have offended the glorious God who deserves all worship. They will know full well that they're not there for whimsical reason, but that God in his glory and his holiness has been offended, and that this is their wage for all eternity. And that's severe. That's severity. I almost said it's ultimacy, but I think you have to go to the cross for that. I think all the souls in hell do not match what took place at Calvary. We want to understand the severity of God's wrath. Hell is one thing. It's we should not talk about hell without tears in our eyes, says Spurgeon. I think it's very true. But if we want the completion and the totality and the ultimacy, even an eternal hell does not match what God would do to his Son on the cross, because of the perfection of whom he crucified. The wrath that he would heap on his Son speaks of his severity and its ultimacy.
Good.